Why is Meghan in a legal dilemma? What has made people angry about a court decision over Prince Harry? Why is Prince William on the front line? And does King Charles want to bring America back into his fold? We've got a great show coming up. Welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and today I've got not one, but two Richards on the panel. That's an exciting time, isn't it? It doesn't happen very often. You've got to make the most of it. I'm, of course, talking about the Daily Mail's editor-at-large, Richard Kay, and the paper's diary editor, Richard Eden. Welcome to you both. Now, if you don't already, why wouldn't you join the 400,000 others who subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel? You'll never miss an episode of this or our other great royal videos. Now, speaking of other great royal videos, earlier this week, we put out a fashion special which featured our very own Rebecca English taking the cameras inside Kensington Palace to have a look at some of the clothes in there in a great new exhibition. Now, if you want to see that, stick around as it will play straight after this. Well, Prince William is carrying out an important royal engagement in the East European country of Estonia. And Rebecca, as always, is right there on the spot. She sent this report to us from the capital, Tallinn, ahead of his arrival.
This is the beautiful old town in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, where the Prince of Wales is undertaking a two-day official visit, one of his most significant foreign engagements in recent years. We are just 125 miles from the border with Russia, at a time of huge concern in Europe over the country's invasion of Ukraine. Now, William is here in his role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercian Regiment, who are taking part in Operation Cabrit, a NATO exercise designed to bolster the organisation's presence in the region. He'll be meeting the troops and taking part in a field training exercise, as well as overseeing an official handover ceremony. But this has also been a chance for him to meet the country's president, Ukraine very much on the agenda, as well as some of those who have fled the fighting, emphasising William's growing role as an international statesman. Diplomatic sources have told me today that William's visit comes at a crucial time for the UK in reassuring Estonians of our commitment to their security as well as that of Ukraine. That's Rebecca English there. Now, Richard Kay, it's obviously an important visit for William, but politically as well as personally.
Absolutely, Jo. I mean, obviously it's the first overseas tour he's done this year, and there have been precious few of them in the last couple of years for obvious reasons, but also with all the rising tensions around Ukraine, with which Estonia shares a land border, and whatever is happening with the Trump peace deal that he's trying to organise. It is a critical moment. We have a number of British troops on NATO exercises in that part of the Baltic, protecting Ukraine's eastern flank. And William, of course, is also Colonel-in-Chief of the British regiment that's out there, the Mercians. So he's got a great interest in that respect. And I think it plays a lot to his future role as when he's king, head of the armed forces, and he wants to show his loyalty to the troops. But also, the rest of the trip will also interest him too, because there are engagements which play to those special interests that he has, like green energy and mental health issues.
And it's so funny, isn't it, to say this, Richard Eden, but you know, old people like me, we still remember William as a boy like it was yesterday. So, but he has shown in recent times, you know, his trip to Paris to see Donald Trump, for example, that he can handle the grown-up stuff of his role.
Yeah, no, he really has. He was in Paris for the grand reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral, and as you mentioned, he bumped into Donald Trump, then president-elect, and obviously made a big impression on him, because after Donald Trump was waxing lyrical about, I think, sort of how handsome he was, and how I think he sort of put his foot in it slightly by talking about what was tragic about.
Oh yes, very sad about the king.
The king, yes. So. But William clearly made a big impression, and generally does. He's really kind of sort of suited now to these statesman-like visits, and today's is an important one.
Also, it might sound really twee to say, but he just seems really nice. Do you not think?
Definitely, yeah. Well, he has to go from one day, larking around with children at one engagement or something at the football, to the next day mixing with world leaders, or, talking about sort of potential conflict in the Baltics.
And
it's useful for the government, isn't it, Richard Eden? Richard Kay, sorry. They must see the value of using the royals in this way.
Hugely useful to the government. I mean, we talk a lot about soft power. Well, William on this trip this week is soft power in action. The British royal family are huge global. I'm reluctant to use words products, but they're an essential part of Britain's toolkit, if you like, and we can use them around the world, and people want to see them, and it helps get messages across. Yeah,
indeed. Well, William's wife has also been busy. Here is Catherine, Princess of Wales, marking St Patrick's Day.
3 cheers for the colonel in the regiment. Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Get into your boys.
Richard Eden. She was drinking. What was she up to?
Yeah, I noticed it was only a half rather than a pint, but she sipped it very daintily.
Do you think she likes Guinness?
I don't know if she does. I've never seen her drinking it. I'm not sure it would be her drink of choice, but Guinness does seem to be more and more popular among young people in Britain these days.
It's supposed to be very good for you, but what was she up to?
So it was St Patrick's Day, and Catherine was presenting shamrocks to mark the occasion to the officers of the Irish Guards, of which she became colonel when she took over actually that role from her husband. And I think they were always pleased to see her, but particularly this year because she didn't go last year because she was being treated for cancer. So that they seemed extremely pleased to see her, and even more so when apparently she put some money behind the bar.
Yes, some money. We don't know how much, do we?
They didn't say how much.
No.
I have to say, beer in Britain these days is very expensive.
Well, that was my next question. Does Catherine know the price of a pint of Guinness?
Hopefully someone told her how much it costs, and it was enough for all the officers to have a pint later.
Well, sticking with the royals enjoying a tipple, here are the King and Queen this week having a drink during a short tour of Northern Ireland. Everyone's at it party-wise. Richard Kay, it wasn't all that long ago, was it, really, that a trip like this would have seemed unthinkable?
Well, the royals did go to Northern Ireland throughout the Troubles. I mean, they were just managed in an entirely different way. There was a lot more security around because the IRA was still active. But, I lived and worked in Northern Ireland for several years for the Mail, and the Queen Mother, Prince and Princess of Wales all made visits during that time. But we knew very little in advance of what they were going to do. This one was flagged up. We knew the King was going to be having a tipple of whiskey, as you say, and where he was going to be. That shows you a measure of how things have changed in the north of Ireland. And I think it's brought a great deal of pleasure to Charles in particular to be able to visit that part of the world.
Yeah, and interestingly, when King Charles greeted the First Minister of Northern Ireland, he greeted her in Irish, which it's the first time I've heard a member of the royal family use Irish. And it has to be said, it is actually quite a controversial subject in Northern Ireland at the moment because of teaching subjects in schools in Irish. But anyway, he was keen to show off his knowledge of the language.
Do you know what he said, Valerie?
My knowledge of Irish is
you don't want to start a whole
it's quite limited,
other diplomatic incident. Speaking of, we did have a minor one, didn't we, over Canada, when King Charles also received the new Canadian Prime Minister this week.
Yes, he looked very pleased to meet Mark Carney, who I should say it was more of a sort of reunion, because Mark Carney was Governor of the Bank of England for 7 years until 2000. So King Charles got to know him quite well during that time. So it was sort of reunion of old friends in some way. But given all the sensitivities at the moment over Canada and Donald Trump, I know it's a very sensitive issue, but he was keen to show that he was meeting, and we've seen the images of that meeting.
Now, Richard Kay, you've seen the royals deal with a few international crises over the years, one or two. How do you think the King is faring with our current political situations?
Well, I've seen one or two, but I don't think I've ever seen one quite so acute and so personal as this, because Canada is a member of the British Commonwealth. King Charles is King of Canada, not just King of the United Kingdom. And he's a much-loved figure, as are the royal family, in Canada. And this sort of unilateral offer by President Trump to make Canada the 51st state has gone down very badly in Canada. Canadians were hoping for a much more demonstrative response from the King. It's difficult for the King because he's a constitutional monarch. He can only do and say so much. So what we've seen over the last 10 days are sort of subtle shows of his support for Canada and in the choice of uniform that he wore, for example, on a visit to an aircraft carrier, the medals he had on that day, the fact that he sat in a seat presented by the people of Canada to him at the Commonwealth service last week. Yeah. So we've got these sort of subtle attempts by Charles to demonstrate his support, but he, as I say, Canadians have been hoping for a bit more.
Even these, what you call subtle shows of support, they run the risk of really rankling President Trump, don't they?
He's a man who can take offence at the drop of a hat, so yes, they can. I mean, Trump is in a bit of a dilemma because he very much wants to come to Britain for this second state visit, which the King and Keir Starmer have offered him. So he doesn't want to spoil that opportunity.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Richard Eden, from global rows to internal royal domestics, and we discussed last week the rugby and how William and Catherine have support different teams. Well, Catherine will have been the happier half, wouldn't she, in that house?
Yeah, it was fun watching that, and every time the cameras turned to the royal couple in the stands, everyone was watching the body language and everything. But we should explain to the viewers that unfortunately for the Welsh, they got hammered by the English in this match. It was all a bit of a humiliating defeat. They're not doing very well at the moment.
Right.
Catherine is patron of England rugby, and William, in his role of Prince of Wales, is patron of the Welsh. But they did well not to. There were no fisticuffs that I saw,
oh, that's
and
good.
They kept it all. They kept it all very civil.
It's always a sign of a good relationship, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit awkward for William anyway, because he was a big England supporter. I mean, he used to regularly go to England matches.
Well, yeah, but I mean, when England's playing in the World Cup or something, everybody should support England. Right?
Yeah, but he's the king of all the different nations, so diplomacy is called for.
And do you think it will have swayed George in sort of like nailing his colours to the mast?
My experience of children is that they usually just want to support the teams that are winning, don't they?
Yeah, that's what I was always like. I would change every week. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So he probably is veering towards England, but that could all change if the Welsh, get their act together.
Come on, Wales, you can do it.
Don't forget, he's a future Prince of Wales. So
he
may well have to support the Welsh.
Yeah, so even if he becomes a fervent England fan, perhaps William might have a word and say, keep that quiet.
Don't tell him that. He might have a tantrum. He's like, as kids will do. Lots more still to come on the show, but we're going to take a quick look now at a couple of your comments. We'll start with one from our fashion special that went out yesterday from Ms. Sparkles and Glitter. No wonder you were watching. I love Catherine's impeccable sense of style and fashion. She says she has the perfect body frame for fashion with her slender figure and her height. One of my all-time favourite looks from her was at the BAFTA Awards in 2023 with that white dress and those long black gloves. I loved it. Don't think you'll get any arguments here on that. Now, a reminder that fashion special will play straight after this. To the comments from last week's show, we had a couple of nice ones from viewers in Estonia. We didn't know we had viewers in Estonia, but we welcome you. It's great news. Like this from Elise Visnapu, who writes, "Welcome to Estonia. I hope you will enjoy my beautiful country, and it really means a lot for us to see the support from bigger countries as the situation with our big neighbour is growing more and more worrisome. Love to you all in Estonia." Now, we won't get back into the America-Canada debate that has raged in our comments these past couple of weeks, but we will read this good point from Catherine Dallaire, who writes, "Let's remember that Princess Anne's grandchildren are part Canadian." That is a good point, yes. Now, also raging among the 2,500 comments last week was this moment. Now, Joanne Hutchings had this to say about Meghan Markle's new show. Sorry, Meghan Sussex's new show. And God, did I get in trouble. Now, among the more polite, less furious comments was from Marzak, who wrote, "Oh no, don't play her reinvention game and call her Meghan Sussex." So to you, Marzak, and to everyone else, I was joking. I mean, maybe my jokes are too subtle or just not very good, but it was very tongue-in-cheek, I thought. We do welcome your comments regardless. Keep them polite, because it's nice to be polite, but also if you are polite, you have a better chance of having your comment read out. Right, back to the panel now, and sticking with Meghan, Richard Eden, you wrote an extraordinary story about her in yesterday's paper, didn't you?
I genuinely did find it extraordinary. I have to say, friends of hers have been in touch since to play it all down and say it's not a big deal. But what it was she's trying to trademark the new name for her lifestyle brand, As Ever. Remember, previously she tried to trademark American Riviera Orchard and there were objections, and so she ditched that one. Well, now she's trying to register As Ever. But the story that I ran was that her application had been sent back to her. And it was sent back because there are a string of errors, including one which she had made several times before, which she failed to sign the application. And you just thought, well, this is starting to get a bit weird. I mean,
That is odd.
Yeah. So, as I say, her friends are keen to play it down and say, oh, it's routine with these kind of things. But it just seems that clearly someone's doing something wrong in terms of the admin, because that's what it is. It's just filling in the forms correctly, but there were various aspects that were just done wrongly and had to be sent back. So it doesn't mean it won't happen eventually, but you just think, why are these mistakes being made? And, you know, if they were still part of the royal family, I mean, blimey, heads would roll, wouldn't they?
Right.
I mean, could it be linked to the fact that they have this huge turnover of staff that we've, you know, heard about so often over the years? I just don't know, but it doesn't give a very professional image.
Yeah, Richard Kay, we've discussed stories similar to this on the show before. It starting to, as Richard Eden says, starting to defy belief that it's this slapdash.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, you can't imagine it happening with members of the royal family here. But of course, members of the royal family here don't have these commercial enterprises.
No.
They're not trying to monetize their positions. Meghan is. But as Richard says, I mean, we know that she's had a big turnover of staff, but we also know they have a lot of staff running around doing these chores for her. Why aren't they on it? It really is quite baffling.
And sorry if I'm sounding like a broken record, but why did she not try and trademark With Love Meghan, which works with the show and there's more consistency? It's just like, I feel like every 5 minutes there's a new name.
I don't know.
Yeah.
she hasn't explained that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're thinking it's branding, isn't it? So it's going to go on these pots of jam and edible flowers and stuff. With Love Meghan would work, you would have thought. As Ever. Maybe she wants to keep it general. I mean, remember that if you're trying to sell goods, you might want to sell them to people who don't particularly like you.
Well,
you know, keep it.
It's funny you say that because, you know, is it too cynical to suggest that with As Ever, Netflix could take it without the partnership with Meghan and keep it moving on without her?
I'm not sure about that, but certainly I thought the point of American Riviera Orchard is you could think, oh, these stuff's great, I want to buy some, even if you're not a fan of hers, whereas it might be off-putting if it's sort of Meghan.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you're trying to get into, you know, Meghan's brain here, and that's not really for us to do.
That's why I was asking.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, well, maybe next time. Now to Prince Harry, who has had some legal travails of his own in America after we finally had a resolution of sorts about this legal battle brought by the Heritage Foundation trying to get the government there to release details of his entry visa. Richard Kay, you've written about this in today's paper, and the headline suggests that Harry might be sitting on a ticking time bomb.
Well, I think he'd be foolish to think that this is now all over. What happened in the US this week was that certain documents were released which were not actually his application for a visa and what he put on his application form, which is what this Heritage Foundation, a Washington think tank, have been trying to get to the bottom of, but actually explain the reasons why they weren't going to issue the full details. It was also heavily redacted. It was very hard to work out what, if anything, we've learned. But what I have learned is that the Heritage Foundation is an organisation that is very much in tune with the Donald Trump White House, and they've really got the bit between their teeth. They're very well resourced, well funded, they've got a top-notch legal team, and they are pursuing this, and they will go on, and they are confident that at some stage, either through legal means or by Trump himself unilaterally issuing the actual documents that everyone wants to see, we'll get to the bottom of it. So what is it we're trying to find out here? What we're trying to find out is, did Harry was Harry truthful about his drug use when he applied for his green card to live in America? And it's a talking point because in his memoir, Spare, he famously talked about his use of cocaine as a 17-year-old and other recreational drugs that he'd taken over the years. Now, this might automatically disbar him from being allowed in the US. It is possible that he could even be deported. It's probably unlikely. It is also possible that Harry admitted this on the form and a special waiver was issued to allow him to stay. But these are the things people want to know.
Is it wrong of me to think that the fact that so much of these released documents are redacted speaks volumes?
Well, you can read too much into redacted documents, but yes, it could be that there is something there that the public have a right to know.
Do you think there's a risk for Harry that the more this is talked about, the more people will start to demand to know what on earth has gone on?
Well, it's a big issue. I think it's a question of fairness, isn't it? And from what I've heard from various Americans is they do feel strongly about it because lots of people are barred from entering America because of drug use that could be a long time in the past or something or very minor. And then here they have someone who was boasting, frankly, in his memoirs about past drug use, has been welcomed in, the red carpet's been rolled out for him. So it's a question of fairness, and we know that Donald Trump has strong views on immigration, so he would want to seem that he's treating the rich the same way that he would treat other people. So anyway, we will, I think it's an issue that we'll carry on hearing about.
Even if, we find out there was special treatment or he, did lie diplomatically, it's never going to be. They're never going to kick Harry out of America, are they? It's like, that's not a diplomatically great place for the two countries.
Well, I would never say never. We just don't know. I think it's highly unlikely, but there may be issues if Harry were to leave the country and fly back in. I mean, it could be very embarrassing if he's sort of detained at immigration.
Yes, yes, I can imagine. It would be, yeah. You're sort of phoning your dad, or sort of like going back for your golden visa in Portugal. Oh dear. Well, let's stick with diplomatic matters now. Richard Eden, to a column you've written for Mail Plus, which suggests that the King might have an unexpected offer for President Trump.
Yeah, I thought this was really intriguing. It was a question of someone suggested to me that America could be invited to become an associate member of the Commonwealth. Now, the Commonwealth obviously had its roots in the British Empire, but it's expanded and it's a voluntary organisation and has quite a few members who, republics that have never been associated with Britain. So this was a suggestion which has been made in the past, actually. Last time Donald Trump was president, that because of his fondness for Britain, his love of the royal family, that it might be something that appeals to him.
But and why? What's the point?
Well, from the Commonwealth's point of view, it would be great because it would be another strong, powerful member that would add to its influence. And from the British point of view, it could have great advantages. We've seen with the dispute between America and Canada, perhaps the Commonwealth could be a forum for helping to resolve these issues. The King is very passionate about the Commonwealth, just as his mother was, and I'm sure that he would love to see America join in some way, but whether he actually suggests it when he meets Donald Trump remains to be seen.
Well, I'll say this, I'd never thought I'd see the day that Australia was in the Eurovision Song Contest, so who knows what could happen. Who knows? Yeah. We will put a link to both that and Richard Kay's piece in the description below if you want to check those out. Well, hear that? That's right. It's time to recognise the unsung hero of the week, and it's our firm favourite on this show, Princess Anne. There's a piece on the Mail Online to mark the 51st anniversary of the attempted kidnapping of the Princess Royal. Richard Kay, the kidnapping was a few years before you joined the Royal Beat. Yeah. I mean, remarkable, isn't that? But, what was... Its impact was still being felt quite keenly when you started. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the attempted kidnapping, which was in 1974, changed everything in terms of the public access that the royal family did from then on. They had much more
security around them ever since, and everything changed really after that. It's chiefly remembered for the fact that the bodyguard who was with Princess Anne, his gun jammed and there was no backup police car. All that has changed now. It seems incredible to think that that's how the royals travelled around in those days. But there it is. But it hasn't hugely impacted on the way that the royals interact with the public. They still do walkabouts. There's just much more security around.
Yeah. Richard Eden, there was a suggestion that all of the late Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's patronages would go to the current King and Queen, but some are apparently going to Princess Anne.
Yes, I mean, an awful lot did go to the King and Queen. It was about 400, I think. But Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth were patrons of, I think it was at least 500. So there was still quite a few. We know that William and Catherine took one, patronage of the Royal Marsden Hospital, where Catherine was treated. This week it was announced that Princess Anne had become patron of, let me get this right, I think it's the International Society of Cape Horners.
It's the International Association of Cape Horners.
Yes.
Remember that, everyone. Yeah.
What this is a sailing society. Essentially, it's for adventure sailors. We know that Prince Philip loves sailing, so he was patron. It was something that he felt strongly about. And as we know, Princess Anne too loves sailing as well. So
check out those lighthouses.
Yeah, so it's something that she was clearly enjoyed doing, and it's a great fun society because it's all about adventurers on the open waves.
Hopefully a bit less perilous than a horse ride. So, yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it still shows that, despite her, recent accident and stuff, she's got that great sense of adventure.
She is so hardy. We love that. Well, with William in Estonia this week, we thought we'd look back to other times the royal family visited Eastern Europe, and there are some great pictures here. Well, we hope that Rebecca will be back next week to tell us a little more about William's trip to Estonia. Thanks to the two Richards for joining me today, and to you at home for watching, of course. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.